Hey, so let's continue. I've been stuck on the missing completion stage of the auto completion module for a while now. So I want to try to complete this stage today. So I think the reason why I feel as though why I'm finding this stage particularly hard is that there seem to be a lot of moving pieces because I'm not sure about how the readline library works under the hood, and so therefore I'm having a tough time trying to understand how the readline library basically replaces the word to be auto-completed. So let me explain why that's important to just get a better understanding of what the problem is myself. Okay, so just to back up a little bit, so here we're building our own shell in this project, and a shell is an interface to an operating system. That's one way of thinking about it. Uh, Let me just repeat that. So one way of thinking about a shell is that it's an interface to an operating system. And I'm working on the auto completion module of the shell, which means that yeah, uh, anytime I have a user partially inputs a command and presses tab, the shell should intelligently complete the command for him. So that's the module that I'm working on. And here, in this stage of the module, I'm specifically working on if there is no autocomplete for a particular partial string, I want to sound the bell. I want to sound the bell. And it seems like the way terminal is the graphical program that runs the shell process. Uh, so it seems like the way the terminals produce the bell sound is when the shell process sends uh, the ASCII character, the ASCII byte 7 to the standard output, and that's when uh, the terminal sounds the bell. Uh, so let's actually look at what the current behavior is, and yeah, I think one. Let's just actually. I think what's going to help me is to reread the stage. Missing completions. In this stage, you'll refine your shell's tap completion behavior to handle cases where the user types an invalid command. When the user types a command that is not a known built-in and presses tab, your shell should not attempt to autocomplete it. Instead, it should just keep what the user typed and should ring a bell. This means that if you type XYZ and press tab, the command should not change and you should hear a bell indicating that there are no valid options for XYZ. The tester will first type XYZ and then press tab. The tester expects that the prompt still shows XYZ and there is a bell sound. The tester will verify that your shell does not attempt completion on invalid commands. The bell is sent. The bell is sent by printing X07, the bell character. Cool. So I'm going to use Vim in this demonstration uh, just for fun. Um, yeah, I don't want to use syntax highlighting either, just to keep things, yeah, it's just for fun. Um, so, so this is the autocomplete method, or the function that is passed to the readline library. So this is registered with the readline library, and we've registered this as an event for tab. Okay, so I think last time in the last stream we ended off with printing just returning text instead. I think let's comment this part out. So right now what I expect will happen is if I just return text, any invalid command, its completion is itself. So therefore, I expect nothing to happen because if for a given line you replace uh, a word with itself, nothing's going to happen. But I think last time we ran into a problem where something did in fact happen. So tab, tab. Wow, okay. It seems to have gotten stuck somewhere. Yeah, so the program is not responding to my keyboard inputs, and it seems to be frozen. But I remember getting around this last time by inputting a certain keyboard input. Why would this happen? I can't actually tell. So we're waiting for input, but it's not taking in my input, which is surprising. Mm. Control C maybe? Control D? Okay, so now it's starting to take my input, but Control Q? Oh wow. Oh shoot. So it seems like it seems like my exit was passed to the shell that owns the shell that was to the shell that was spawned that I created, and so it ended up exiting that shell, I guess. I think. I believe. Uh, Great. Python 3 at main.py. So for example, XYZ tab does nothing. Another tab does nothing. Ah, I see what's happening here. Uh, I think what's happening here is that I'm sorry. Let me go back to that. Um, is this being recursively called, and is the text being repeatedly replaced over and over again? Is that what the problem is? So XYZ, let me press tab really fast and see. If I press enter really fast, is that going to make a difference? Okay, yeah, so I think this is something worth actually checking out. This is something worth creating a hypothesis for and testing out and coming up with a theory for why it doesn't work. Okay, so it's probably going here, right? It's going here. It's going in this branch, and whenever I press tab for text that doesn't match ECH or EXI, it's going to go into this branch. And then, since I'm returning text, readline is going to replace replace the part of the line that invoked this function with text. And text itself doesn't include the tab character because that is what triggered, I assume that's what triggered the autocomplete function, and I think readline omits that. So what could be the problem? So if I return text, I don't see any problem. But if that theory is right, if the theory that it's being replaced again and again is right, this should fix it. But yeah, I know that this is going to work, but I feel as though this is not I believe that this is not a good fix because I think it's important to first understand why it's going wrong. XYZ, tab, right, there we go. It is responding now. So yeah, so I think this is where we left off last time. So let's try to understand why this fixes it first. So if state is 0, it means that it means that we're looking for the first autocomplete. So for example, if it's ECH and I think we can loop through things. So I can maybe add an ECHI command. So I suppose what's going to happen is that it's going to loop through the commands in the same line, or yeah, how does it work in Bash? Let's try to, so ECH, there we go. ATC, ATI, perfect, okay. So what it does is that on the next line, it prints out all the possible commands, and then it loops through all the commands on the original line. This is an interesting implementation, but let's check out how Bash does things. Oh wow, okay. Okay, so here it prints out all possible. Okay, so I think the way Bash handles autocomplete and ZSH handles autocomplete is different. So every shell handles autocomplete differently. And I think that's what one of the previous stages actually says, that every shell handles autocomplete differently. So I'm trying to understand how this project wants us to implement autocomplete. Right, I think that multiple completions, that's going to be, probably a later stage. But yeah, so here I think the thing to learn is that different shells handle autocomplete differently. I think that's my takeaway here. Okay, so I think this should fix the problem, but let me try to understand why this fixes the problem. So I think what's happening here is that the prompt is not being printed. I think, so read line is not printing the entire context of the string. Instead, it's just printing the autocompleted string. I'm not sure how to verbalize that thought, but that's confusing. So I think this is precisely what I got stuck on last time, because readline, I don't know how readline exactly works, so I'm not sure about whether the prompt is uh, uh, whether the prompt should be printed or not. Yeah, it should be, but why it's not being printed, that I don't know. So how do I fix this? Hmm. So X, Y, Z. So what's happening here is uh, right. This is confusing. I don't know why. Because I don't think the issue is that it's printing out the command and on the next line it's printing out possible options, because I just realized that that's something that you need to implement. That's not something you need to that's not something that readline provides automatically. And yeah, so I feel as though my understanding of readline is very fuzzy. That's what the problem is. So okay, and then how do I think Control B is to go up a page, Control V is to go down a page. Um, okay. Oh, right, here it is. Right, so I should probably read the documentation of readline to see. So basically here, so we know that the delimiter, so they don't talk about what happens to things that are outside the delimiter, because if I want things outside the delimiter preserved, this doesn't seem to be doing that, right? But it does seem to be doing that for echo, right? Which is what is interesting. So can I return text plus a space, I guess? Yeah, I'm just finding this very difficult to process. And yeah, I can see why we have an additional space with every iteration here, because you're adding up a space. But isn't that supposed to be part of the separator? Yeah, I think I'm going to be looping on this if I continue trying to solve this. So I'll just try to move past it somehow. Um, and move on to executable completion. I think that would be a more productive use of my time. Okay, so in order to ring a bell, I suppose that 0, I think this is how you embed uh, a byte in a string in Python. I would know for sure if I had uh, syntax highlighting, but I think that's how you do it. So in a string, if you want to specify a raw byte that constitutes a particular character, you can use the escape, you can use backslash x and followed by um, the 2-digit hexadecimal code. So return text plus this if state is 0, otherwise none. So I think this is going to be eaten up by the terminal. And in the next iteration, I'm not going to I suppose that in the next iteration, I'm not going to have this, but am I not going to be looping on this like I did the last time? Okay. I'm gonna see if this works, and if it does, I'm gonna move on. Text. Perfect. Okay. But so Control G is used when audio is turned off and the shell wants to show that there is a sound that the output has produced a sound. It has sounded the bell, but but okay, let's try to. Yeah, so the problem here is that this is being appended to the string every time. I think there might be something wrong with the terminal, application. Again, so here I don't actually know how readline works, and so I'm really stopping in the dark, so to speak. But I'm gonna try to push it to see if it works. This is not ideal, but I think for some stages, I think it's okay. So I'm just gonna mark off the stage and get to it later on to see. I'm gonna try to install a different terminal as well. That's probably gonna fail, but let me just look at the comments. There seem to be no comments here, which is interesting. Ah, so this is what expected, received. So, but this is, yeah, so this is not what it received, because it literally didn't receive this. The terminal ended up printing this. Right, so would printing 0x7 make a difference? Say I say print this. Would this make a would this solve the issue? Because instead of readline thinking that 0x7 is something that I want to display, it instead is going to let me just directly print to the output. That's going to be processed directly by the terminal. So, but now it doesn't actually sound anything. I don't hear anything. But now if I do Control C, I'm gonna hear the bell. There we go. Yeah, I hear the bell. But is that because of this print statement here? Yeah, I'm taking a stab in the dark here. Yeah, I do hear the bell now. But this is the same thing, I believe. Uh, so here I can see that it's gonna return none. Hold on. But I think the print here is being overwritten by the carriage character, and so therefore what's happening is because readline, it uh, probably uses the carriage return in order to uh, print the whole thing again. I'm gonna need to have 0x7 here itself. So I don't think this is gonna work. So state is 0. I'm gonna have to append it here. But the problem is every time I append it, it's gonna change the state. Uh, every time I append it, it's going to change the string that's sent to the next autocomplete. And so you're going to end up appending multiple 0x7s to the typed missing complete to the typed incomplete command. Yeah, so readline is very interesting. So it seems to maintain state for every, so it seems to know what exactly you typed, which is interesting. Um, feel like this should work, but it just doesn't work as expected, which is annoying. Wow, okay. Hmm. I think the zero is for writing octet strings. That is bytes in the base 8 representation. There we go. Yeah. Yeah, so I think this kind of works. But isn't this what I pushed though? Right, so I think this is precisely what I pushed. Right, so this is exactly what I pushed. Oh my god. Okay. But this doesn't work because it's printing out G instead of actually sounding the bell character. Okay. Um, so let me ask ChatGPT. Printing 7 literally prints instead of sounding the bell in the terminal. Why could this be? Why could this be? So the terminal of the program printing it is escaping or representing control characters instead of replacing them. Right, so interesting. So is it possible that what's happening is readline is assuming that we want to visually show the bell character and sort of replacing this with G. Is that possible? I think so. Oh, and by the way, uh, so I so macOS uses edit line and not read line, so that's another thing to consider. But because on the remote machine as well, we're seeing the same problem, it means that edit line might work the same way. Um, okay. So let's look at the documentation for readline. Right. Sound. Bell. In addition to GNU Emacs, right. Oh, interesting. So do I need to set bell style to each row? Variable readline has variables that can be used to further customize. Okay. So this is set to audible by default. So how do I ring the bell itself? What about /a? I'm pretty sure this is not the right way to approach this, but this does actually, I think so this does make a difference. I can hear the bell each time. But I think that I think /a is the same thing as 0x7. Um, hmm, belt style, by default, it's audible. Controls what if set to none. Readline never rings the bell. If set to visible, readline uses a visible bell. If one is available, if set to audible, readline attempts to ring the terminal's bell. And it's set to audible by default. And so, I mean, readline sets belt style to audible by default, but we're not sure about edit line. So I've got to look at the main page for edit line. Oh, perfect. Okay. So, go. So I wonder if I'm looking at the right section. Maybe not. I'm too lazy to look at the right to get into whether or not it's the right section. So I've got it. Okay, so let's set the variable here. Let's try to set it within the code. Um, so can I use parse and bind to set that variable? execute the init line provided in the string argument called rl parse and bind in the underlying library. Yeah, I wonder why non-authoritative sources are at the very top very often. So we don't have that. Would it be possible to yeah, I'm again taking a stab in the dark here. Pretty sure this is probably not what expected, but gotta try. It still prints Control G, which is interesting. So another thing I can actually do is I can write this and I can try to flush it. So that the carriage return doesn't make a difference in the, later on. Oops. Okay, that actually works. Wow, okay. XYZ, that works. Okay. I'm just gonna move on. But I think that theory is correct that because readline ends up calling or typing the carriage return character, where the terminal ends up erasing everything that comes before it. So even if I print even if I sound the bell, it's going to be erased by the terminal. But that's that's a lot of moving pieces though. Okay, get commit ring bell by printing instead of modifying autocomplete string. I hope this works. Auto completion, missing completion. Right, okay, so I wanted to print readline belt style unknown key modifier. Oh, perfect, okay. So I can actually remove this. expected prompt, read line, balance style, which is interesting. So I didn't see that on my computer. So I wonder why I didn't see it in my computer. Is it because the edit line processes parameters differently as compared to read line? I think that could be it. Okay, so I think I'm done with this. Okay, I'm just gonna move on. I simply don't want to waste any more time on this stage. But I think I learned quite a bit. Rather, I feel as I've learned quite a bit. Uh, yeah, but yeah, I think I can start the stage in the next video. But yeah, thank you. I'll see you on the next one.